So we talked about the range of content, the sheets, this, that, the judging. What I guess that would transition me into like the percussion advisory board, where the magic happens, quote unquote. People make rule proposals. People make, I guess, suggestions for procedural changes, things like that. What is the percussion advisory board like? I know it happens every year after WGI, right?
It does. Yeah, we've had a little bit of a hiatus from the PAB. That concurrently at the same weekend, there's a color guard advisory board, percussion advisory board, and winds advisory board. It's made up of the finalists in world class for all of the classes, and then the top five for all the rest of the classes for open and A, independent, and scholastic. So, like color guards, they would have a total of 50 potential advisory board members, 15 from both worlds, five open, five AA. Percussion would have a ceiling of 75 if the concert classes were as filled out as the rest of the classes, but usually it ends up being around 68, something like that. And yeah, you can make a proposal, you can make a rules or a policy proposal to the board, to the advisory board. If you're there, it helps, right? But you don't have to be there to make a proposal. But the thing that we've done the last couple of years, or in 18 and 19, that really helped was that you have to get a second from the room, from somebody in the room. So if your proposal is like, Mike says any group that has Fantini in their name is going to get a 95 no matter what. I'd like to propose that rule. And everybody's like, nope, that's stupid. So it just sits there, and Mark says, does anybody second it? And Mike sits there like this because he's mad because he wants his 95, but nobody seconds it. It's gone. We don't even talk about it the rest of the weekend. If somebody else says, yeah, I think we could go for that Fantini rule, let's try it, then we will bring it on the docket for the next day, and we talk about that rule proposal. The thing that we're trying to eliminate is competitive baggage, which is like 80% of what the proposals are. Like if I put a proposal in and said, anytime the music score on finals night is an odd number, it moves up, it bumps up to the next odd number instead of even number. So we would, instead of fourth, we're third. I think that's a good rule proposal. And that would be just such horseshit. It's so obviously my group that I want to get more points. You'd be surprised, though, how many proposals are so blatantly self-serving. So we try to get rid of all those. And then age out rule comes up, 4.2.1 comes up, whether we can trigger.
What's 4.2.1? Is that the age out rule?
Dude, you got to read the rule book, Evan.
Well, I do need to read the rule book. You're right. I saw somebody Facebook status like 4.2.1. I was like, what's this? And then I forgot to look it up.
That's the triggering. Like, do I have to make one word, or do I have to cut up the word, or can I just hit play and play a song? And that one's come up quite a bit over the years. So, and then we do the rule proposals. Then there's election from the advisory board. There's two things that happen from that. There's a steering committee, which is the admin team. So Chris, Caleb, and Mark. Currently there's 3 judge reps. I think we're going to move it to 4 now since we've added effect visual over the last couple of years. So those representatives are voted on by the judges at the judges meeting. So like right now, I know that like Austin Green's on there, Omar's on there, but we have representation from the judges. And then there's 5 directors or activity representatives. And I think right now it's me, Vega, Mapes, Tom Unk, and who's the other one? I don't know. There's 5 of us. Maybe it's K-Shaw. Anyway, the 5 directors, 4 judges, 3 or 4 judges, and then the admin, that makes up what's called the steering committee. One of their biggest tasks during the year is to work on reclassification. So we have a huge spreadsheet that shows a group, okay, they're in Scholastic A right now, they're being reviewed to be in Scholastic Open, and then it has all of our names and it has a vote. And if you get, usually you have to get 7 votes or more. Like you have to get a majority of the amount of people that are on it. And if everybody says that they're misclassified, then they go into the next class automatically.
Sorry,
that's
Joe
one of the
Avery. Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, and that's obviously a lot of misconception goes into being promoted or bumped, which we call that being reclassified. Because the reason that you're being moved from open to world is that you're doing world-class skill sets, and you should have been in world in the first place. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm so excited we got promoted." It's like, no, your director just didn't put you in the right class in the first place. So it's not. That's why we don't make a big deal about it. It's not a promotion. It's just putting you in the right group so that your feedback from the judges is catered toward world-class skill sets or intermediate skill sets or beginner basic skill sets, and that your students are getting the feedback from the judging community on the same sets that they should be competing with their competitors.
You're trying to be in AAA, but you should be at the show.
Yep. Yeah, and there's some groups, like there was 29 groups this year in Independent World, and we did reclassify, I think, 2 of them this year into that classification. One of them did pretty well. One of them didn't score as high. I think they might have been last, but 29th in world class is still, you're saying this is a world class group. They're doing world class skills, and we're going to judge them on the world class sheet. There's no way that they should be doing all that in open class, beating up on people.
Yeah. I saw both of those groups, and I sent videos of them, and I was like, this is not an open group.
Yeah. And a lot of people think like, well, if we put them in world, then are they going to be able to beat Mystique? Well, no, maybe not. But that doesn't, we call it the paradigm of the class. Usually the middle of the class. Like, are they going to be competitive somewhere in the middle? Are they doing the skill sets of the people in the middle of the class? And it doesn't matter. Like, well, if we move up into world, we're not going to win. Well, probably. That's true. But you're going to be competing against people that are doing the same skill sets as you.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Plus, like you said, Mike and I actually just did a reaction video earlier this evening where we went back and watched all the medalists from open class, independent, gold, silver, bronze. And nothing against, like, obviously I started an open class. I love open class, but you can just tell, like, when you watch it, you're like, yeah, it's just not, there's a reason, there's a separation. So it is what it is. That I think that's why the activity exists. Like, there's an avenue for anyone who wants to start a new group to jump in, and you will have an appropriate competition level for where you need to be. So I totally get it.
You brought this up a second ago in passing a little bit, but I want to touch on it if you're open to it. Why is there an age out in percussion, but not an age out in color guard? What's the logic behind that? Because I know it's kind of controversial. I've talked to a lot of people that are against the age out. I've talked to a lot of people that think it's a great thing. What's the reasoning?
Well, the chicken or the egg also needs to be examined a little bit. Color guard used to have an age out, and they chose to get rid of it. At the time, my opinion is that the class was struggling a little bit as the numbers were dwindling. A lot of the push was to make sure the international groups could compete, and they traditionally in their cultures have overage kids or overage members, and the color guards chose to take the age out away. Now they've kind of waffled back and forth on that, where it was gone for world class, and then now it's like 25 for open, or like I'm not sure even what it is because they change their rules all the time. And percussion has always had the same one since day one. We started and we made it what the color guard one was. At one point, they changed it. We decided we didn't want to change it. We didn't have a reason to change it. And if you look, our numbers certainly aren't struggling. I mean, 29 independent world groups, all under the age of, well, this year 24. But my biggest thing, and I'm pro keeping the rule, right? That I'm open to talking about it and listening to people's opinions. I think some of the other opinions are absolutely valid. My biggest thing is that I want teachers like Rhythm X's snare line this year. If we didn't have an age out rule next year, that whole snare line is going to come back, right? And you don't get a year like whatever Stand By Me, where we had the eight age outs the year before. Now all of a sudden, T-Gas and Dan Shack and Travis, they don't move over from the East Coast and get a spot in Rhythm X because all those same guys are still in the line. What's Dan Shack at that point? Like, is he as famous as he is now? Is he running Carolina Crown's battery? Who knows? Maybe, probably not. Right? That foot in the door for those kids, based on age outs happening, is a real thing. And then the other thing, like I use my wife as an example a lot. She'll be on a weekend. Fall season, no problem. Full staff, three flag techs, weapon tech, dance person. We get into the winter and it's February, and all of a sudden a group in the area's got 3 holes to fill, and her staff all fills those holes, and now she's at a regional all by herself with no staff. And if those kids had to age out, they wouldn't do that. So I feel pretty strongly about that. There's a lot of arguments about like older students that are 28, 29 being with 18-year-olds. I think that exists even now. I mean, if somebody's 22 or 23 and you've got a 17-year-old in your group, I think unfortunately bad things can happen in any kind of a situation. But I don't think that a 29-year-old, they can't, I mean, I know that my tech staff who's in their 30s, they're not marching the drill that I write. Right? They might still have the best hands, but they can't handle it physically.
No.
And I don't want them
way.
to.
Evan and I have talked about that. I would have, I see both sides of it too. I'm more on the side of the age out is a good thing for the reasons you pointed out, illuminating, T-Gas, Travis, Dan. Do they get to where they got to if they didn't get to move over to Rhythm X? I've always looked at it as if you don't have an age out, you're going to just delay and push back when you get to move to the top level. Now, percussion, I think people are going to age themselves out. I mean, there is an age out, and I aged myself out. I could have marched Rhythm X or auditioned for Rhythm X in 13 and 14. I just, because of life and everything, I chose not to. I think people still... Huh?
That was a miss.
Oh, dude. Dude, it was so funny that I called Rhythm X winning in 2013 in January. There was a video in the alumni group posted from like one of the first like holiday camp or whatever, and I sent the link to Evan and I said, "This looks way cooler than a lot of the shit we did the last 2 years."
I think my exact quote was, "You effed up."
Yep. But I mean, it is what it is.
Anyway,
whatever.
So like I think that's a pretty good point though too about the teachers, because ultimately too that just delays the timeline of everything. I mean, I was already.
I have another theory if you want to hear it.
We do.
Yeah, okay.
That's what we're about.
Yeah, we'll jump into it. But I mean, I was already married my age out year with the X marching indoor, but so that kind of jumps back to the point. It just moves the delay back to everything. Like your teachers don't start teaching as well, then your teachers don't start designing as early, then your designers don't start judging as early, and then all of a sudden everybody's complaining, well, the judges don't design and the designers don't judge, and nobody's talking about the judges knows what they're doing. So like, it's like, all right, well, what do you want? You want people that are fresh judge? You want people that are fresh designing? What do you want?
Yep. Yeah, I've had this discussion with a couple of the pro get rid of the rule people, the other side of the aisle, and I have a solution. I'm not going to propose it because I don't necessarily want it, but if they wanted the free solution, I think one of the things that is difficult is that a student who's 19 to 22, like those 4 years that you have after you graduate from high school before you age out. Sometimes it's 4 years, sometimes it's 5 years, depending. Sometimes it's only 3 years if you're really old in high school. If you are a music student or in the military, I think that you should be able to defer your years. So, because a lot of the kids in Rhythm X, like if you're a full-time music student and you're marching drum corps and you're trying to march Rhythm X, financially it's super taxing. And I think that there'd be some sort of compromise. Like, let's say you're 19, you're a full-time music student. I've got 4 years of qualification to march at Rhythm X. I'm going to defer this one and this one. And so my freshman and sophomore year, I don't march Rhythm X. That means I would be able to march my junior and senior year, and then the next 2 years after it, if I wanted to. And then during those 2 years, I've graduated from college. I might have a job. I might have enough money to pay for all my dues and the person next to me's dues. And then you're never going to get somebody that's more than like 26.
True.
Right? Which
true.
is still kind of reasonable. You know what I mean?
It's like a red shirt rule.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It
Like
is.
in
And
sports.
it might take some of the taxing nature of the finances off some of these kids as well. So
Yeah,
that's my solution for the other side of the aisle, but I'm not going to propose it.
I mean, I know a firsthand experience like that. Like, I know a girl right now who marched indoor, and she goes to a college around here, and she pays for her schooling, and she pays for her indoor, and she's like trying to scrounge up money to march drum corps, and it's just like in a matter of 1 calendar year, you're asking her to come up with $4,300 for drum corps and $1,500 for indoor. It's a lot of freaking money for a kid.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I understand, like, well, I want to have the experiences, and I don't see DCI changing their rule anytime soon, which is fine. But yeah, I feel like that's a compromise.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll come up this year, especially with the fact that we had the 2 extra age out years. But
I know it's already been submitted.
Yeah, but if you look at a group like Broken City, I know that they had a ton of they call them super vets that would have aged out in 2020, didn't age out. They're all 24. They're all super mature and super strong and have great presence. And I think that's great. I think that's cool. Do we really want that same exact battery to come back for the next 4 years and have no other student get the opportunity to march in Broken City snare line? Personally, I don't think so. I think it was cool that it got to happen this year. But I don't know. I've just had too many students that have gotten the opportunity to march in places because the age out rule exists.
No, I agree with you. I've never really been on the side of the fence of get rid of it. I think it's a good thing that it's there. I think it's a good breaking point in life. Usually that age lines up with college if you chose to go to college, or it's like 4 years after high school. I think it's I've never really had a problem with it.
I never would have been the center of Rhythm X if there was an age out rule.
That's true.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
And most of the people, that wasn't a slam, Evan. But there was
that's not a slam.
There's a lot of talent.
I do not take it as a slam. I probably would have never made Rhythm X if there wasn't an age out rule.
Most of the people that are in the camp of wanting to get rid of it, and this is a generalization, but most of them are trying to get a better car, right? They're trying to say, well, how are we going to compete against Rhythm X when they've got a better car than we do? Well, if we had 24 and 25-year-olds, maybe our car would be as good as theirs.
Yeah, if we can keep the same group of people. Yeah, if we can keep the same battery 3 years in a row, yeah, we'll compete eventually.
But all the top groups would be doing the same thing.
That's true.
With more talent.
But will the groups below the top 5 catch up if that same battery sticks around for 3 or 4 years? I mean, we talked about that threshold thing, man. I mean,
no, because I know what I stopped doing after I age out, and I stopped drumming. So
my chops went down. I gave a lot of private lessons, and my fundamentals got way better.
My knees went down, I'll tell you that.
That's true. I could not, probably by about, and Tim's right about the physical side of it, like probably by about 24, 25, 26, and I actually started working out more after I was done with the indoor and drum corps and all that stuff, and I still, I think I'm 31 now, and even at 27, I was like, I couldn't put a drum on and do half the stuff I did 5 years ago. Now, maybe if I had kept doing it every year and not stopped, who knows? But I think
I couldn't do the choreography they do now.
No, I could not at all. Nope. But
so it'll come up at the PAB for sure, and then hopefully it'll have a good discussion. I know that last time it came up, it was not handled super great. Kind of the conversation got shut down, and I hope that doesn't happen this year. I think that everybody in the room, that there happens to be a number of bigger personalities in the room that are very pro keep the rule, and have a tendency to be able to just stand up, say 3 or 4 sentences, sit down, and everybody's like, yep, keep the rule. next conversation.
Yeah, I think ultimately that is the worst thing that could happen in any activity is to like just immediately shut down conversation. I mean, there's so many aspects of culture, there's so many aspects of television and media where you just see that is an extreme negative. It's like, well, let's hear this person out and have a rational conversation. If somebody doesn't want to change their mind, fine. That's on them. They don't have to change their mind. But to hear someone out is an extremely valuable skill set. And people aren't always going to be right. I'm not always right. I say things that are completely wrong sometimes. I'll completely own it every time. Somebody's like, hey, that's not right. I know on occasion I've gotten text messages from people after I do a podcast like, hey, just let you know, like, what you said about this is actually blah, 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 blah. And then I'll come on the next podcast and be like, well, I got some more information, so I'm going to update my info. But yeah, to have the conversation is great. You don't have to accept it. People don't have to agree with it, but to shut people down is pretty whack.
Yeah, that's one thing that Mark Thurston is really good at, because there's a lot of people that are in that room that, like I said, this is my 25th PAB, that I think the comment that got said last time when the age out thing came up was like, oh God, here we go again. And it was from people that had been in the room and they've heard the discussions, you know, through the years. And some of the discussions, yeah, they do get a little bit repetitive if you've been in that room for years and years and years. But Mark is really good at letting anybody talk that has an opinion, and that the proposal's on the table, they get to defend their proposal, whether they're a first-year person or a top designer, as it would go.
Love it.
Oh, man.
Nice. Well, on that note.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been about an hour and 21 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. Evan, do you have anything else? I mean, I think we hit most of the stuff that we had kind of thrown in our text group that we wanted to touch on.
I'll open the floor if Tim has anything he wants to throw out.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of topics. I think that I'd like to just offer myself up to anybody that's listening to this podcast. If you're ever not sure about something, got a question about the activity, what happens behind the scenes. I know I alluded earlier that I'm really involved in the corporate side of the company. And I just like people to be informed. So when I hear people talking on podcasts or whatever and having the wrong information, if you're ever not sure, just hit me up, shoot me a text, timfairbanks@me.com. I'm not going to put my phone number on here, but you should send me an email.
Good
Hit me up on Facebook or something. But yeah, like I said, I think that guys like you that are fighting the good fight and being able to just talk like humans about our activity, I think is a really cool thing. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I greatly appreciate it. And I've always witnessed Tim firsthand over the years, just offering up advice to anybody, whether it's about just WGI as an organization or WGI as like how to design your shows, or like, hey, we'd love to pick your brain. I've always seen you just offer up your services and willingness to share the love. And this is kind of a tribal activity where we share knowledge through the years. And yeah, I really appreciate the time, man.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yep. So let's close this out. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Again, check out LoneStarPercussion.com, discount code Aged Out, save yourself some money. Check out the YouTube channel if you're on podcast services, or vice versa. If you're on YouTube, check out the podcast services. We're on Facebook and Instagram for any updates. You don't want to miss that stuff. We're just going to keep making content, and we'll see everybody in the next one.
Peace.